So when it comes to changing the podcast game, you were one of the originators, the pioneers of it. Like, what went into y'all's mindset and into the focus, like on the backside of everything? Like, hey man, this is how we need to attack it.
Yeah, it was just I retired and didn't really know what I wanted to do. Had made a couple of investments that were moving, but I retired my first year into a 3-year deal, so I gave myself 2 years to kind of figure out like what was my next transition move. I went into sports media, was doing ESPN and Fox, and so was Stack, and just getting positive feedback. Like, oh, we like your realness, and the way you analyze shit. And we was at my house in the Bay, smoking, watching the game one day. I was like, let's do a podcast. And Jack's like, what's that? I was like, I don't know, but I think we can drink and smoke. He's like, shit, because ESPN and Fox, you got to walk that line. You know what I mean? And I was able to walk that line, but it wasn't necessarily my personality. And I told him, I think we could drink and smoke. And he's like, shit, I'm in. Fast forward maybe 2 weeks later, I get called to do a Showtime documentary for DeMarcus Cousins. And I get done shooting my scene, and the producer's like, hey, I heard you want to do a podcast. I was like, I didn't even know how he heard. He's like, well, Showtime's starting this basketball side of their digital side. I was like, Showtime, like the network? They're like, yeah. So a dude from New York came and met with me. I cold pitched him, like, hey, this is I want a man cave vibe and, barbershop vibe where we're just talking shit, smoking, drinking, and just throw a camera on it. He loved the idea. But then initially, they didn't want Stack. Like, oh, are you sure? How about you just host it and we'll bring other guests? And it's just like, because I guess they hadn't really seen enough of his personality to know if that was something they wanted to bet on. But, I told them, like, if you don't take him, I'm not going to do it. So they finally come around and we catch lightning in a bottle. I think Knuckleheads was a little bit before us, Q Miles and Q Rich, but I think we kind of really put a flag down and created a different kind of environment. Again, as sports media changed, I feel like we came right at the right time to kind of be able to not necessarily have to be at those big networks now to have your voice heard and have your opinion heard.
My question is, I'm gonna circle back to the interview you were talking about with, Kobe, and your very first one, the one with the vice president. Was that one that was kind of like, was that nerve-wracking at first?
That was left field. That was way out of left field. You know what I mean? Like, we're not a political podcast, but I'm in politics and civil engagement and just want to learn. I have kids, so I kind of want to be able to do my part if I can to make the world I leave behind better. You know what I mean? So for me, one of my homeboys, Chris Holliday, hit me. He used to work for the Obama administration, and we do some business together. And he's like, hey, I might be able to get Kamala for you. I'm like, word? He's like, yeah. I was like, all right. So this is maybe like a Thursday. Friday goes by, I don't hear nothing. Saturday goes by, so I'm like, oh, he was probably tripping. Sunday, he calls me, he's like, I got her. I'm like, got who? He's like, I got Kamala. It's Tuesday. Keep in mind, this is Sunday night. Yeah. I'm like, what? So I call all the smoke team. Hey, we're going to interview the vice president. Catch a flight Monday, interview her Tuesday, bounce. But let me backpedal a little bit.
Where'd you guys go? They interviewed?
Her, the DC? Vice president house.
Oh, wow.
Her house on the little Air Force base, little area. Yeah. But backpedal, Jack didn't want to do it. Like, Jack didn't want to do it, and we got into it, and I was frustrated at him. And when he spoke his piece, I spoke my piece, and I understood where he was coming from. But at the same time, I feel like Jack represents a lot of Black and brown people that feel like, man, what is the point? You know what I mean? Like, this shit is fucked up. It's not hard to figure out what needs to be fixed, but why can't we fix it? And if you can't fix it, why the fuck am I going to keep engaging? So I understood where he was coming from, but I'm always business. I'm always thinking ahead first of the opportunity, but I'm also thinking like, bro, you represent a huge population that feels the same way. And you more than within your right to feel that way, but you also have an opportunity to sit down face to face with her and ask her. Like, why not be that? You know what I mean? And why not learn enough to know what you want to be mad at? You know what I mean? I don't think people understand, the president and the vice president's powers. It's more about Congress and the House and the Senate than anything. And if you learn that, you start to understand like why Obama couldn't pass the shit because he didn't have the House. You know what I mean? Why it's hard if you don't have both. It's really hard to move forward with your plan. So, Jack didn't want to do it literally all the way up until we're sitting in her house. And she's maybe 10 minutes from coming. Jack is still off everything. Like, didn't want to go over the rundown. Don't really want to be here. But me, like, I took it serious because I realized the opportunity it was. I knew the eyeballs it was going to put on us. And I was studying, man. We were the night before, we smoked, and We were up figuring out the
You
questions.
and Kamala?
No, I wish. That'd be dope, right? That'd be dope. That'd be real dope. But no, this is not like almost game, like watching game film. You know what I mean? Like if I got to guard Eddie House tomorrow, I'm knowing how he's running around all these motherfucking screens and the pops and all like. So I'm watching.
I'm gonna set a back screen and
I'm gonna have to help. And you're gonna do your thing. So, I'm looking at old interviews and finding questions, kind of figure out what's the best way, because All the Smoke is not a political podcast. So I didn't want it to be a political interview. I wanted it to be an All the Smoke interview. And I think what we pride ourselves on is humanizing people and getting to understand another side of them.
Yeah.
So my shit is like, okay, there's maybe 3 or 4 questions we want to ask that we feel like our community is affected by, but really I want to give our fans a chance to get to know her on a deeper level. And if you think about it, at the end of the day, that's my bad. At the end of the day, she's from the Bay. You know what I mean? And she's a old school Warriors fan that was in the stands during We Believe, that took a BART to the arena to watch us. So, she's a Warriors fan that happens to be running for president. You know what I mean? So to me, it was just more of a get to know her better type interview.
Was that hard to wiggle around though? Like, to keep it not political.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
A lot of people don't like mixing that shit. I don't mind mixing it, but if people keep politics, and I respect it. Keep politics, and it was, you know what I mean? Because you got to think, like, I think the business of All the Smoke, so I got to do what's right for our fan base, you know what I mean? Like, we're not a political, we'll never be a political podcast. I enjoy policy, that's why I do some other shit outside of that, but, to speak to your audience is what you want to do to continue to grow and stay where you're at. So it was definitely like, it sounds crazy when you say taking a chance. I mean, I look at it as an absolute privilege to interview her, but it's also taking a chance because, I saw a lot of people, man, I love this podcast, but not a lot, but a handful, like, I don't know if I could listen to it. And, so you take a chance with that. So I'm glad we took the chance. Again, I'm someone who wants to be engaged and wants to learn, so we got a chance to know her a little better. But to be honest with you, man, it put us in another space. You know what I mean? Like, we've been on the road the last week or week and a half, and doing Good Morning America and Good Day New York and all the Breakfast Club and all this kind of shit that just kind of kept throwing gas on the fire and ran our numbers up. Now we're at the top of, the podcast charts. So I'm always thinking business when I'm also thinking show, you know what I mean? And I was glad that, Jack came around and understood because, all the post energy he's been loving. I'm just like, bro, I never led you wrong in life or business. You mean, like, I knew this would be good, and I'm glad he was able to come around because, we are a team.
Yeah.